Hey everybody, and thanks for tuning in to Rottweiler Performance Garage. Today we're going to be tackling the dreaded 1190 fuel tank removal. This is a sore spot with a lot of customers in getting this thing off because it's a lot like the dashboard of a car. It's not hard if you know what you're doing, but it can be a little bit daunting, you know, trying to figure out the puzzle pieces of plastic that cover this fuel tank. So today we're going to show you how to do that easily and effectively. If you already know how to do that and you're installing a Rottweiler intake, go ahead and click here. And if you haven't and you want to know how to remove this tank, watch the video. Tools you need for this are really quite simple. A pair of needle nose, some sort of driver, 6mm hex, T30 Torx, T40 Torx, 8mm socket, and to boot we threw in a hose remover tool. They help a little bit. All right, first things first, we're just going to remove the seat. Pretty simple and straightforward. Okay, first thing you need to understand about this motorcycle is that this panel needs to come off. Now there's a hidden bolt underneath here that's an 8mm head, and then as soon as this piece has been removed, it'll expose that bolt. You can remove that and these pieces will come out. There's 4 other bolts that are difficult to find, 2 up here and 2 in the front. They're mirrored on either side. So we'll show you where those are and how to remove them in what sequence. Okay, first thing we're going to do is remove every bolt that we can see, and that's basically a T30 Torx for all of them. So we're going to remove this back one here, here, up front here, some hidden ones down there, and a couple hidden ones up here. Okay, first tip I'm going to give you is that out of all these bolts, they're all the same size except for this one right here. This one's a little bit longer than the rest. So when you end up with 2 long bolts, they're basically going to be from either side, and that's because it goes through more layers of plastic than the rest. Okay, this is what we like to call the mystery bolt. It's this little guy right up in here, and it's only this one. It's the same T30 Torx. There's 2 of these on either side, so they're mirrored. There's one on this side, one on the other side. So we're going to want to remove this bolt now as well. Okay, mystery bolt number 2 is right up here behind the dash. Now there's 2 of these. Again, they're mirrored from either side. It's T30 Torx. This is the next one that needs to come out. This will release this gray piece here. Okay, now we can remove this panel. It's very simple. Just moves straight forward like this. Now, we're not going to show you how to put all this stuff back on, but what you need to know when you do put it back on is you see this hook right here. That's going to want to hook on this bolt. So you want to make sure that when you slide it on, that this hat is inside of here. The common mistake people make is they don't hook this, and this thing basically goes on and kind of just flaps around. So if you slide it in right and you get it lined up, it'll hook, and you can tell by pulling on it. Just like this. The other thing you got to know is there's this little knob right here, and it fits in a little hole right down here, and that's all you have to do when you snap it back on. So now this panel's off, same thing on the other side. Okay, now we're on mystery bolt number 3, which is this one on both sides. This is an 8mm, and this is what holds these 2 panels on. So we remove this guy, and that's what's going to free up both these covers. So we got the top cover and then this gray piece here. Okay, the next step, we're just going to pull this top piece off. It's pretty simple. You just pry it from the back, pops over the top, and you're going to have to kind of tilt it a little bit, and it'll pop off. It kind of hooks on the front of the fuel tank here, and it just comes off just like that. Okay, next we're going to remove these gray pieces here. These are a little bit tricky. There's a tab right up here that kind of hooks down in, so they tend to come off with a little bit of a pop. So once they come off, you'll see there's a little tab right there, and that tab fits in that slot. So putting it back on, you want to hook it from the top and drop it down in, and then all you need to do is unplug the blinker light, and this piece is off. Okay, next we got the 6mm hex up front on the front of the fuel tank. Okay, now we come in with our T40 Torx, and we're going to remove the rear fuel tank bolts. These are special bolts. They only fit in these spots, and there's a hat that they fit in. You're going to remove that hat or else it'll fall out. They're fairly loose on KTMs. Okay, at this point we're going to work our way down to the fuel line, and there's 2 things we have to do here. On both sides we're going to have to shut off this valve, so screw it in clockwise. And the other thing we're going to have to do is get a pair of needle nose and move this spring clamp over and get this fuel line off. Now this can be a little bit of a knuckle buster here. And as an added note, some models, the fuel line travels behind the header with a heat shield on it, and other models, it travels in front of it. So either way, you want to remove the fuel line from both sides. So we're going to use a proper tool for the job, but it can help to try to move this fuel line around just a little bit. Now, watch your eyes. You're going to want to wear safety glasses, or watch your eyes when you pull this off, because fuel will come squirting out of here. So we're going to get our hose removal tool in there, and you kind of just want to break the grip a little bit, and you'll hear a little bit of noise, and some gas will come out. You want to make sure, again, that both sides are shut. And this is just a crossover. You can see a little bit of gas coming out there. So I either have a cup ready or a rag, and just go ahead and empty the gas, pull this off on both sides. Okay, we have 3 more items on the top of this fuel tank here. This hose right here basically evacuates any water that may fall into the gas cap. So if you have any condensation and falls in there, that's where this goes. And this just goes to atmosphere. So we pull that off and put it aside. This is the line that goes to your charcoal canister. So if you're not doing an emissions removal, you're going to hook this back up exactly the way it came off. If you are doing an emissions removal, this part right here will basically run down and follow this line to the left-hand side of the engine when you're done. We'll cover that later if you're doing an emissions removal. The last piece here is the electrical plug for the fuel sender. This is your fuel level gauge right here. So we're going to push that off with our thumb, and all of these parts basically just get pulled off and pushed to the side. Okay, now we're going to disconnect the fuel line, which is right here. It'll say CPC. You just press the button and it should just push it right out. Make sure to pull it straight so you don't do any damage to the O-ring. And now we're going to disconnect the fuel pump electrical connection. So you depress that with your fingernail, and that comes out right there. Okay, now what you want to do is you want to push these plastic parts in with your thumbs and grab the front of the tank like this. Now, on our models, there's some crash bars around the fuel tank. On these models, it's some plastic supports. They're both going to come off the same. So we're going to push these in with our thumbs, grab the front of the tank, and you're going to pull backwards. And the tank is going to shift back, and then now these plastic parts will clear. And you're able to grab the tank, kind of get your hands in these holes. And the fuel line will drag on the frame a little bit. You can also reach down and stop it from doing that. But you can hear it a little bit right there. And gently pull off just to make sure you haven't forgotten any hoses, and the fuel tank is off. All right, now we have the fuel tank off. That wasn't so bad, was it? A lot of people are afraid of that, but once you kind of know the drill of the puzzle pieces of plastic, it's not that big of a deal. Now you've got it down, so putting it back on is pretty much exactly everything you did, just in reverse. You've got to watch out for putting it on, dragging the fuel line across the frame. The way the hoses and electrical connections are routed, you're going to want to hold the fuel line with your left hand. But other than that, it's not that hard. So now you're ready to install your Rottweiler intake system, and we thank you very much for watching our video.